Intersection Magazine Podcast.
Welcome to Intersection Magazine Podcast. Today my guest is Kimberly Haley-Coleman. I met Kimberly through contact online. I'm excited about her work because it covers an area that interests me a lot in terms of what people do after their careers, what you can do in addition to your career. We find very many people that are in corporate circles, for example, that spend their lives making money, then reach a point in their lives where they realize maybe they're missing something. Maybe they had their priorities wrong. So she has an organization that helps people volunteer, go and meet the needs of other people, and this can be quite fulfilling. So I'll let her introduce herself a little later, but we're really thrilled to be having this conversation with her. I hope that my listeners will appreciate this conversation. Once again, thank you for listening and thank you for subscribing. So, Kimberly, please tell us about yourself. Who is Kimberly Haley-Coleman?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I really, really do appreciate it and welcome the opportunity. And yes, as you said, I was on a more traditional career path, although I had spent some time in the nonprofit world and the for-profit world, and we're talking early 90s. I had found myself with some downtime, wanting to really contribute in some way, and had always traveled internationally. Because I had done a lot of traditional tourism at a pretty early age, I found myself really wanting to give back and contribute for short term. And I just was shocked at how impossible that seemed to be, that no one seemed to want me short term because of the amount of time and investment it takes to pull somebody off of whatever they're doing to oversee and train you to give back in some way. And that frustration really turned into curiosity for me, which then turned into action, where I just started trying to mobilize these shorter projects on my own. And I was really surprised when I came back to find that so many other people said, I want to do that too. And that was the moment I realized it wasn't just me craving this meaningful connection and impact, but there were countless others hungry for this similar type of experience. So if you've got 2.5 years set aside to do the Peace Corps, that's obviously an incredibly profound, meaningful, long-term way of giving back. And there are plenty of people who do similar kinds of projects through their churches. And then there are schools, obviously, that do this too. And actually, GlobalWare now works with a number of universities, although we are seeing a variety of projects being impacted by the recent administration's cuts. So even though most universities do have projects and programs that people can join, it does seem to be a changing landscape, I have to say. But we do offer short-term ways for people to meaningfully engage in 26 countries around the world, and usually on very concrete projects. So there are a lot of people who can go and give, particularly young people, for 4, 6, 8 weeks over the summer, but they may just be helping with teaching, helping do beach cleanups and things like that. We tend to be much more hyper-focused, organized kinds of projects that we do. We're installing concrete floors in the homes of single moms in Guatemala. We're building the traditional wattle and daub style homes in Kenya. These are projects that the locals choose. They choose how we do it, the materials we're going to use. We hire the locals who are overseeing what we're doing, and they're doing it alongside us. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do.
Okay.
And they're all
Um,
short term. They're all
eh,
1 week projects. So the kind of thing somebody can do over Thanksgiving or over spring break or over part of their
wow, yeah.
Christmas holiday time off. They're very, very short term.
Okay. Are you like limited to, do you have like, in a sense, a religious affiliation? Are you, how does that work? Are
Yeah.
you
So
restricted in
it's a
terms
great
of where you
question.
can go?
First of all, yeah, so a couple things. There are, first of all, it's the participation fee that our volunteers pay, which to some it seems high and to some it seems very inexpensive. It's around $1,400 for a week, and that covers the food, accommodations, our
Okay.
project material, our bilingual coordinator, our bottled water, our medical insurance, our liability insurance, all those things are included. And so from a social entrepreneurship, it's the volunteer that's participating that's paying for their program. The local communities don't
Okay.
really have any funds, and we do not receive funds from any sort of government or um, any other source, right? So that's a key piece. And then
Okay.
the other thing in terms of how it works, we have local staff that is there alongside our volunteers. And with one exception, they're all people who are from that country. Our exception is our coordinator in Guatemala, who's been living in Guatemala for, I'm going to say 40, 50 years now, but she was born in Canada. So she's one of, I think, the only exception that we have. But anyway, so our coordinator works with our local grassroots organizations. So it might be a women's cooperative, it might be a just named after the community, trying to do community service projects and so forth. We go to
Okay.
the local schools and we ask them, what do you need? What are your list of priorities? And there are
Mm-hmm.
times when we may not be able to do some of the items on their project. We are not Doctors Without Borders. We are not
Okay.
Engineers Without Borders. Our volunteers don't
Mm-hmm.
come ready to do electrical wiring and surgery on people. So our projects have to not require overly specialized skills. Now, because we hire locals to do so, for example, when we are mixing and pouring the concrete, we don't expect that our volunteers know how to do that. So we hire locals who specialize in that and oversee whatever
Okay.
we're doing, but they're not overseeing us doing electrical wiring. If we need that, we only hire locals to do that.
Mm,
So that's a little bit about how it
okay.
works.
I'm also curious about the issue of like, sometimes you find corporate organizations that want to do corporate social responsibility. Do you partner with corporates? Is there an opportunity for you to approach, or for a company to approach you and say, listen, we would like your expertise in a certain area to help us be a bit more visible and more effective? Do you have like a consultancy service that you offer as Kimberly Haley, or as your
So I don't,
organization?
so I wouldn't necessarily call it a consultancy, but we do very much customize when we have corporate groups that come to us and say they want to give back in some way. We will try and
Okay.
meet their specific mission. So,
Okay.
and we've had up to 250 people, for example, in Thailand and Cambodia and Costa Rica. And what we've had certain companies do, I'll give you an example. Vivint had realized that their technology is very appealing to families that have kids on the autism spectrum. And so they
Okay.
came to us and said, can you host this many volunteers working on materials and facilities that would benefit kids with special needs in this country? And so we've gone and tailored our projects um, like that, like we might do a sensory garden in India because the company that's coming wants to benefit kids with special needs. However, that doesn't mean that all of our projects, I mean, really, it's when we have corporate groups that we try and really specialize for that. Or if, let's say, we've got a group of college kids from NCSU, for example, where they wanted to do something that was either engineering or water related. So we um, pulled in, basically put in a new water line that was into a community in Peru because that was something they were specifically looking for. So I won't say that we always customize our trips, but when we have groups and countries and communities where we feel that we can specify a project that's based on what a university or a corporation wants, that is something that we will do. And in that sense, we look at the corporations and we look at the schools as just one other place that is feeding us volunteers. I would say our bigger partnerships are with the local communities that we're working with on the ground. So in terms of partnership, I mean, I guess it's all euphemistic, right? Partners, volunteers, communities. So we're definitely all working together. But it starts first and foremost with the local communities in terms of them defining what it is they want and how they want to do it.
Okay.
And we really, we are
What is
working
your team?
side by side. Well,
Yes. Sorry?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I was asking, what does your team look like? What's your team composition and your reach in terms of your global reach?
So our team is always led by a local coordinator. They're the primary
Okay.
regional chief, if you will. And
Okay.
they're the ones who, and they're local, and they're the ones who are hiring our drivers, our chefs, our project leaders and
Oh.
foremen. They're the ones who are making sure the project materials are being delivered. They're the ones who are bilingual, who are working with the volunteers for the whole week. So they're the ones who you go to with any questions. So not only about the project, but what we're doing with our free time. So we're not working 80-hour work weeks, we're working 30, 35 hours, and then we're still doing several planned but optional cultural activities with our leisure time, right? And our coordinator is also planning and carrying that out. When we have large groups, we usually have a coordinator per every 12 to 15 people. We found that we're not like a cruise company where you've got 50 people in uh, a tour. It's just not the way we work. We're much more, we're higher touch for sure. Higher touch and smaller groups. And when we have big groups, we treat them like a bunch of small groups. It just fits what we do better because we're trying to have high impact. I have to say it's at a high cost. And so when people, particularly young people, will ask, I just don't understand why I have to pay to volunteer. And you don't. You can go and show up and ask a church or a school if there's anything you can do for them. But if you want somebody bilingual there to have materials, who can have people that have the time to train you and oversee you and also get cultural activities and all that stuff in, you do, there is a certain amount of you get what you pay for, but you could always show up at any program location, any place around the world and ask them, hey, can I help you build this for your house? And, use a translator on your phone. And so there's different ways of going about doing it. For us, we just feel like this is a more organized, sustainable, responsible way of going about it, and sustainable in terms of social entrepreneurship, because how those things get paid for is not a small concern, right? Making sure that there are going to be people ready and able and safe and having the insurance paid for. So people don't really care about that. For those who do, that's the one of the roles that one of the niches that we fit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's your personal leadership style?
For us, so I personally am not trying to just put more flags on a map. We're really hoping for depth over breadth. And for us, every country starts with relationship building before we send any volunteers. So we aren't really ever intending to be growth oriented. That said, because we have a very high rate of returned volunteers, and so many of the time, once they've experienced our programs, they want to go to a different culture. So that has been what has our base volunteers have been what's led to our footprint growing. And we're wanting our communities to very much benefit. So that authenticity is a bit of a guardrail for us. Our scale is the having feet on the ground regularly, and not just getting bigger, but by maintaining consistency and by getting our local communities to a point where they understand how we work, and then working with what their goals are. And really, that's so making sure that we pick good people who are able to carry that out. I would say that it's funny, it doesn't feel as much like leadership to me as partnership, because really locally they're leading what we do. So while revenue keeps the lights on, every organization has to have lights, but the true bottom line for us is really human dignity and that community involvement and resilience. And so in terms of leadership, I feel like it's mainly letting those aspects shine. It's not about how big the pie is, it's how many people are actually eating from it. And did the irrigation system that we installed in San Pedro de Costa survive the dry season, for example? Are the teachers being supported? Do we feel like there's accountability? So those are the kinds of leadership aspects that I'm looking to.
People get in touch with you, both of those in the U.S. itself as well as those abroad. In my case, those in Uganda, East Africa. That's the region I represent. How can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you? What are your socials, your website?
So we have a very active set of social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. We have our own podcast channel. All of it is at Globalware, and LinkedIn, all those things that show, video clips of what are we doing today, and little interviews with volunteers or coordinators or local community members. So you get a sense for how we operate. And we have a 1-800 phone number and a direct phone number, 214-824-4562. I think it's Love Globe, LUVGLOBE. So we're pretty easy to reach out to. YouTube, I have to say, has been pretty helpful and meaningful for people, regardless of whether or not they're wanting to do our service projects, because there are video clips on things like, hey, how do I go and fill out my tourist card when I'm visiting Cuba? How do I get my passport renewed on an expedited basis? Or how do I, when I'm visiting South Africa, get the best spot to visit the penguins? Just little things like that. So we have lots of little video clips that we hope are helpful. We work in a variety of locations in Africa: Kenya, Malawi, South Africa, a variety of countries all over. And you get a little bit of sense through our social media how those projects and programs differ from one another. We're very heavy in Africa, Southeast Asia, Latin America. We only have one location in Eastern Europe and only one in the United States, Puerto Rico. And some of that is a function of where we've seen two things: either really interesting cultural differences, because we're hoping our volunteers really get to know and understand a different culture, and then also places that have a need where we feel we can make an impact, a real need, And so all hopefully our social media and all our at Globalware provide ways for people to feel find a way where they can do and feel good and make a genuine connection in their lives. Because to me, that's really where the magic is. Why somebody would want to do a project or program like this.
Some of the key things that I think I've gotten out of this conversation was the importance of depth versus breadth. When I asked the question about leadership, you insisted on the importance of depth versus breadth. You also talked about the nature of your teams and how you build small teams, or make sure that the teams are focusing. The team leaders are focusing on groups of about 12 people. The usefulness that you found in your YouTube channel, for example, in answering just basic questions, whether or not they're related to your voluntary work. So a lot to process from this conversation. Thank you so much for taking time to speak to me and to share your insights and ideas and your vision with us. I hope we can meet again a little bit later, maybe talk a little bit more, maybe be part of a team that you'll be leading around East Africa. So you're welcome to our country and you're welcome to the continent. Thank you very much, Kimberly Haley-Coleman, for being part of this conversation.
Nicholas, thank you. We really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Intersection Magazine Podcast.